Please ensure that you're on the L&H meeting in eScribes. Otherwise, your request to speak and voting functions will not work. All votes will be recorded, so you will need to ensure you are voting via eScribes. Clerks will be ensuring every vote has been recorded before we move on to the next item. I'd like to now call the meeting to order and say good afternoon. Welcome to our Licensing Hearing Committee meeting on May 1st, 2025. Before we get started, I would like to call on Chair Redmond. Chair Redmond, please.
Thank you. I would like to invite everyone to join me in a moment of silence in memory of Councillor Williams. If you can stand, please do. Thank you. Councillor Williams will be deeply missed by all of Council, regional staff, and our community. We collectively send our thoughts to her family at this time as we grieve this unimaginable loss and celebrate her life. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. I'd now like to call on Chris to conduct the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Chair Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Hunick.
Present.
And Councillor Novak. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd now like to do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Shawanoe peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. And as we reflect on this, we have to remember that they welcomed us with open arms. They welcomed us into this land from Canada with respect. And let's hold on to that respect as we walk with them further into our present and future. Are there any declaration of peculiar interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Reports PDL CAS 25006, Improving Accessible Taxi Services in Waterloo. We have two interrelated reports for today's meeting. The first will speak directly to the feasibility of a centralized wave system at the region and staff recommendations for the best method of improving accessibility for taxi services while being fiscally sustainable. The second report provides more context to updating the taxi bylaw with suggestions on how to proceed with modernizing it. That report is only being received for information. I will now call on Nora to provide a presentation. I could that really good, really smooth, on the two reports. Nora, please.
Thank you, Chair Foxton. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nora Mtasali, and I'm a Policy and Program Advisor here at the Region of Waterloo. I'm here to present two reports today, one on accessible taxi services in the region, and the other on updates to our existing taxi bylaw. Both of these reports are closely connected to update and enhance our current taxi services while ensuring regulatory consistency. I will begin by outlining the proposed centralized wheelchair accessible dispatch system, also known as WAVE, and then proceed through our detailed findings, cost implications, our data, and strategic recommendations. Next slide, please. Over the last several months, there has been conversation with the committee regarding WAVE. Now, to give some background, WAVE is a centralized dispatch system aiming to streamline accessible taxi dispatch across all brokers 24/7 for on-demand calls. The purpose of this system is to reduce wait times to under 20 minutes for on-demand accessible taxi services and provide an easy-to-use platform for users. WAVE would support multiple booking channels, including an app, a website, and a telephone line, aiming to improve service availability for all users. City of Calgary and Winnipeg are the two municipalities in Canada who have piloted it and implemented the WAVE system. This was in response to their average wait times being over an hour and due to various complaints they received from their community. Their experiences provide useful insights as we consider WAVE for our region. Next slide. Based on a jurisdictional scan, the implementation and operation of a WAVE system would range between $1 to $1.5 million, and this would be funded through the municipality's accessibility fund. The cost of implementation has two parts: the capital cost and the ongoing cost. The capital cost would include the purchase of the software itself, the resources to install the software for our taxi brokers and drivers. We then have the ongoing cost. This is where we will need to fund software updates, system maintenance, the hiring of a full-time employee, and 24/7 dispatch support to maintain and operate the program, and most importantly, our incentives to brokers and drivers to participate in the WAVE program. Now, understanding these cost structures is essential as we balance service improvements with fiscal responsibility. Next slide, please. So looking at our data, in 2024, our regional accessible taxi services provided a total of 39,452 rides. Approximately 39% of those were on demand, with average wait times ranging from 12 to 17 minutes. Notably, 88% of on-demand rides were fulfilled within or under 20 minutes, and only 0.5% exceeded 1 hour. Peak usage was observed between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. So when we compare to municipalities like Calgary and Winnipeg, where wait times exceeded over an hour before the implementation of WAVE, our current performance is quite encouraging. At this time, staff have not received complaints from the community to the region about wait times and availability of accessible services. However, it is important to address that there has been concern about the public being aware of where and how to make a complaint, and our goal moving forward is to work towards addressing this gap and ensure that the community, our council, and staff are made aware on how or where someone can make a complaint. The region has already been in conversations with our communications teams and the accessibility advisory committees to address this issue. At this time, complaints can be made to the Service First Call Center, a 24/7 call line, which will then be directed to a member of our staff to investigate and track the complaint. Next slide, please. In 2024, the region updated their incentive programs for taxi brokers and drivers, as well as for the community. First, the region provided $40,000 to brokers to cover the cost of new accessible vehicles, resulting in bringing 9 new accessible vans and replacing all but 1 van, bringing a total of 25 accessible taxis to the region. Next, we increased the per-trip incentive for accessible taxi drivers from $2 to $5, which this increase was in response to complaints from drivers regarding insufficient funding to cover the maintenance and operation of an accessible van. As a result, we have not received any complaints from the drivers since this increase. We also increased funding for the taxi script, also known as the taxi coupon program, from $40,000 annually to $55,000. Now, looking at these incentives that were implemented just last year, our accessible taxi ride volume increased by 40% from 2023 to 2024, an impressive success underscoring the importance of our incentive program. Next slide. Since 2016, our auxiliary taxi providers, including Uber, Lyft, and RideCo, have contributed a 7-cent accessibility fee per trip to our accessibility fund. Given that this fee has not been revised in nearly a decade, and considering the impact of inflation, as well as alignment with fees in other municipalities like Calgary and Ottawa, we propose raising this fee to 10 cents. This adjustment is critical to ensure that our accessibility fund remains robust, to support current incentives, and accommodate future service enhancement without reaching a deficit in our fund. Next slide, please. Under Section 7.1 of the taxi bylaw, it is required for all brokers to have a total accessible fleet size that is equivalent to or more than 7%. This percentage was determined through consultation with the accessibility advisory committees back in 2016. With the incentives implemented in 2024, the total of accessible taxis increased from 16 to 25, bringing our fleet size to 7.5%. With an increase in the accessibility fee to 10 cents, staff are also recommending to increase the fleet size to 9%. This would involve adding an additional 5 accessible taxis, raising the total to 30 by 2026. This initiative would be a positive response to the growth in the region's population and increase the availability of services. Next slide, please. Collaborating with GRT is also one of our top priorities to provide efficient, accessible services in the region. With GRT's new business plan, Mobility Plus is planning to implement a new scheduling software with the goal of optimizing Mobility Plus vehicle utilization by having an efficient scheduling process. Currently, taxi companies handle approximately 35% of Mobility Plus calls to support their services, especially during peak times. With the upcoming scheduling software updates, it is projected that taxis will handle fewer Mobility Plus trips, which can increase the availability of accessible taxis, which may reduce wait times even further. Working together with GRT, we'll be able to increase the opportunity to collaborate to optimize our resources and services while potentially minimizing costs collaborating on future initiatives. Next slide, please. Now, looking at where we stand today, when evaluating our current financial landscape, the outlook for our Accessibility Fund is concerning if we maintain the existing 7-cent fee. At this rate, and assuming we keep our current incentive structure, the reserve will fall into a deficit by 2027. To avoid this scenario and to secure long-term revenue, staff recommend increasing the fee to 10 cents on auxiliary taxis. This change will ensure the sustainability of our ongoing incentive programs and enable the expansion of our accessible fleets. Next slide, please. Displayed on the screen is a comparative graph. The red bars represent our current trajectory with a 7-cent fee, forecasting significant reserve depletion, leading to a deficit by 2027. Conversely, the green bars show that increasing the fee to 10 cents would stabilize and grow our accessibility fund. This financial position would support current incentive programs and provide the opportunity of purchasing an additional 5 accessible taxis. Next slide, please. Our analysis, supported by comparative data from other jurisdictions, show that the immediate implementation of a wave system may not be necessary nor financially feasible at this time. Instead, we are proposing 3 alternative solutions. First is to increase the accessibility fee. Raising the fee from 7 cents to 10 cents will reflect current economic realities and ensure sustainable revenue. Second is to expand the accessible fleets. With additional funding, we aim to raise our fleet percentage from 7% to 9% by adding 5 new vehicles, thereby further increasing service availability. Lastly is to enhance collaboration with GRT. By leveraging Mobility Plus's updated scheduling software and deepening our partnership with GRT, we can further optimize resource allocation and reduce wait times. This collaboration will also set the stage for future system improvements. Next slide, please. To ensure efficiency, collaboration, safety, and availability of accessible taxi services, engagement with key stakeholders is incredibly important and will be a priority of staff moving forward. First is to have annual meetings with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to ensure that our accessible taxi services are meeting expectations and to discuss areas of improvement. In addition, collaborating with GRT will be a key part of our engagement strategy as we continue to work towards enhancing our accessible taxi services to continue to meet the needs of our community. We will also continue to regularly meet with our taxi brokers to gather feedback, data, and address any of their concerns or complaints we have received from the community. Lastly, but most importantly, is community outreach. The goal of this strategy is to engage the community to gather their feedback or concerns about taxi services, including accessible taxi services. This will help staff to gain insight on areas to look for improvement in our bylaw and possible areas where the regional brokers may provide further support. We aim to roll out this engagement plan both virtually and in person to reach various groups in our community and ensure everyone has access to provide their insight, concerns, or feedback. Next slide, please. To summarize data from the region's taxi brokers, data from the region's taxi brokers show that 88% of on-demand accessible taxi rides have a wait time of under 20 minutes. Therefore, the immediate implementation of a wave dispatch system costing over $1 million does not seem necessary nor financially feasible at this time. Instead, staff recommend increasing the accessibility fee to support our incentive programs, expand the fleet size to increase service availability, and collaborate with GRT to enhance and optimize our accessible taxi services. Therefore, at this time, staff are suggesting to defer the wave system until these initiatives are thoroughly evaluated and reviewed. Next slide, please. Moving on to the next part of the presentation, we are also presenting to the committee an update to the region's taxi bylaw. This bylaw has not been updated since 2016. The goal is to ensure that the legislation aligns with current industry standards while addressing the needs of service providers and passengers. Next slide. Here is a high-level list of some areas staff will be looking into when updating the bylaw. To ensure the legislation remains effective and relevant under current industry standards and to meet the needs of our community. Some include updating criteria for drivers, training requirements, reporting requirements, accountability and compliance measures, and more. I also wanted to add that earlier this week, we spoke with Cambridge's Accessibility Advisory Committee, who also raised concerns regarding certain language used in the current bylaw. Therefore, we will also be updating this in collaboration with the committee to address this issue. Next slide. For the next steps, staff will be implementing an engagement plan starting this month to meet with key stakeholders, such as our brokers, accessibility advisory committees, and the community. We will then return to this committee in August to present our findings from our engagement plan, and then from there, we will come back again to this committee in November to present the drafted bylaw. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Nora. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yes.
I see Chantel's name's up there. Go ahead, Chantel.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Buxton. Thank you, Nora, for this awesome report. I think, from my understanding, there's a loophole that needs to be addressed in the revision of the bylaw, and that is that I would like to see the number of taxis not reported as a percentage of the entire fleet, and that is because as rideshare services go up, then taxi licenses might decrease. Further, the percentage of taxis that are accessible doesn't equate to the percentage of taxis on the road. And so I wonder if there should be a clause of some sort stating that if the region provides funding for an accessible van in the way that we do, that it guarantees a certain number of hours or a certain number of taxis on the road at a given time. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Hunig, for your question. So yes, that does make a lot of sense. So this would definitely be a conversation we would have with our legal team when we are drafting and updating the bylaw. This concern has been raised a few times regarding this loophole. This would also be a great conversation to have with our brokers as well to ensure that they are on the road consistently and making sure they're on the road those hours of the day to increase service availability. So that is something that we can look into, and I'd be happy to come back in August to provide an update on that as well.
Thank you. And part of that might be a difficulty in finding drivers. And so if that's the case, we could talk about incentives or whatever needs to happen in order for that to be feasible. My question, Chair Buxton, was around how the 20-minute wait time data was arrived at. My experience doesn't reflect that. For example, on Monday, I called for a taxi. I was engaged in regional business, and the taxi company told me I should have called 24 hours previous.
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Hunig, for your question. So the way that we received the data was from our brokers directly. And one concern that has been brought up in regards to wait times being over 20 minutes is one of them is the factor that some accessible vans will not be in town at that time. Mm-hmm. So this is why increasing the number of accessible taxis in the region would be helpful to increase service availability. But this was a key factor into those wait times being over 20 minutes, is that those vans weren't in town at that time.
Okay, it might also have to do with geographical placement, but thank you.
Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. I just, and I don't think I missed it in reading it, what was the result of Calgary and Winnipeg's doing this?
Through the chair. So before they implemented the WAVE system, their average wait time was over an hour, even reaching a couple of hours. Once they implemented WAVE, their wait times reduced to 22 minutes, around 22 to 25 minutes.
So it's still 2 minutes more than the average in the region.
That's correct. And our current average wait times is, based on the data that we have received in 2024, has been between 12 to 17 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nowak.
Just a, excuse me, just a quick question. What's the population of Calgary? I should know that maybe, but, and Edmonton, Edmonton.
Through the chair, it's around over 1 million. So 1 million?
So significantly bigger than,
1.4 million. Thanks, Commissioner Spooner.
significantly bigger than what we have in the region, so.
Councillor Hunick.
Thank you, Chair Foxton. Until very recently, when the region acquired 25 accessible vans, the wait time for an accessible taxi was very similar, up to 2 hours. And I think that we have a current sweet spot in the number of vans, drivers, and population we have. However, I'm concerned because our population is growing rapidly, and so I think it could happen very quickly that the ratio gets out of step with the population growth again, and I just want the committee to be aware of that.
Thank you. So motion reads that the Region of Waterloo amend Appendix A of Bylaw 16-045 to increase the accessibility fee on auxiliary taxi trips from 0.07 to 10 cents as per the amending bylaw attached in Appendix D, and increase the accessible taxi fee from 7% to 9% by adding 5 additional accessible vans in 2026. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Chair Redmond. Seconder, Councillor Hunick. And I'm in there. So that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Now we will move on to okay, so 4.2, PDL CAS 25007, update to the taxi bylaw licensing fees and charges. This is for information. Is there any questions on this information? I don't have any. Seeing none, thank you. Is there any other business?
It's funny business.
Also seeing none, this is moving smoothly. Our next meeting will be August 14th, 2025 at 2 p.m. I'd now like to have the adjournment, please. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Nowak, Councillor, thank you very much, gentlemen. And please vote. That is